You're tuned to The Drive on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. Steelers Nation Radio.
Good afternoon, Steelers Nation. It's The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on a Victory Monday. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson with you here for the next 2 hours as the Steelers take care of the Colts and get back into the win column 27-20 over the team that entered that game with the best record in the NFL. Matt, plenty to get to.
Yeah, man.
A lot of minutia, plenty of good. I think some concern from that game. As always, when the Steelers lose, we say that there's good in there. When they win, there's still some things that we have to break down. But all in all, I think a very successful Sunday at Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, I think it should be a joyous week. You know, I mean, the last couple were rough, and I get that, and I very much respect the passion of our listeners and Steeler Nation.
Absolutely.
And there were things defensively that, leading up to this game were very, very worrisome. And, man, I couldn't be, I don't want to say optimistic, but happier about how the big dogs on defense stepped up and all the big plays. And it's very clear, I don't want to say dependent, but probably is the right word, of how this defense is with splash. When they don't get it, it's a long day. Mm-hmm. When they do get it, look out. I mean, because it comes in tidal waves and from all over. And frankly, they were way better down to down in this one too. I mean, they've had games where, frankly, they don't play great defense, but they make great defensive plays. I thought down in and down out, they were really, really good. And I know he can, be a polarizing guy because he's been the head coach for a very long time. And, get rid of Tomlin. It's all his fault, blah, blah, blah. They never do anything different. But I give him and the entire coaching staff a lot of credit because I really feel like, and we'll never know this answer, but I feel like they looked in the mirror and said, what we're doing is not working. We had a plan, and it's time to kind of go off course a little bit here and change the safety situation and the coverages we run and the amount of blitz we're going to do, and frankly, going for it on fourth downs and not playing for field goals. There were a couple instances where, I mean, it's hard to know this for 100%, but they went for multiple first down or fourth downs, and I think they would have went for another too. There was one late in the game. It was like 3rd and 4. They ran the ball, which told me they're going to take two downs to do it, but they lost a yard, so it turned into 4th and 5 instead of 4th and 2 because you could see like Rodgers and Tomlin like, we still going for it? Okay, we're not this time. But like it was an aggressive and good game plan.
It absolutely was, and you saw it right out of the chute. Steelers get the ball first. They go 3 and out. First game.
The beginning was a little worrisome.
The beginning was a little worrisome. It's easy to remember now, but there was a lot of points in that first quarter, or a lot of different moments where it felt like, this could get away from them a little bit.
Pierce is catching balls left and right, and the offense isn't moving the football.
At one point, Matt, at the end of the first quarter, the Colts had 10 first downs and the Steelers had 0.
Right.
Now, by halftime, it was like Steelers had 12 first downs and the Colts had 10.
Right.
But at one point late in the first quarter, the Colts had 10 first downs. The Steelers had run 10 offensive plays.
I think the Steelers did not have a first down in the first quarter.
I believe you are correct.
I'm almost certain, yeah.
And then they rattled off like 12 straight before the Colts got another one. So it was a real juxtaposition there. But you get the ball first, which I loved, by the way. This offense.
I just found this out. Sorry to interrupt, but I guess the Colts and Falcons are the two teams, if they win the coin flip, always take the ball. I didn't never pay attention to that in my life. And I wonder if Tomlin just did that to say, I know you want it first, so I'm going to take it.
I'm going to throw you off.
Yeah, I don't know.
If he did, great call.
Whatever, yeah.
And it didn't work. And we'd made this joke. I'd made this joke a couple times. The Steelers, going into Sunday, they had scored points on every opening drive of the season in the United States of America.
Good point.
The only game that they didn't was the one at Croke Park against the Vikings in Dublin. Well, they finally win a game here in the States without getting points on their opening possession. They go 3 and out. Mm-hmm. Then the Colts march down the field 13-play drive.
Yeah.
Stick it in on a 4th and 1 tush push.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, no.
This is what this team does. Yeah.
And then the offense goes 3 and out again. And you're thinking, oh, man, is this going to get late early here for this team?
That's a great way of putting it. Right.
And they have a special teams faux pas, and you're like, okay, here we go. That's the one play we needed. Everything's good. Slow start, but we're fine. You go for it on 4th down, and you don't get it. I mean, and I loved the decision to go for it on 4th down.
It was the right call.
I'm not like, do not just take the points here. You know what I mean? Like, you have to turn this into a touchdown.
There's going to be a lot of points scored. I mean, this stage of the game, you're like,
there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. This is not going to be a 20-17 game. Do not settle for the field goal here. They didn't. I still loved the aggressiveness and how that all played out early. And again, Matt, if you end up losing this game, we're looking back on it differently, certainly. But to me now, it's even more encouraging that they didn't even get the start that they wanted, and they were still, by halftime, in the 3rd quarter, in the 4th quarter, in a commanding, I don't want to say cruise to victory, but almost cruise to victory scenario. Yeah. And I hear a ton of people screaming.
Taylor wasn't much of a factor, especially late in the game.
Matt, once again, we said this. This was one of our positives about the loss to Green Bay on Sunday night. We were like, hey, if whatever Josh Jacobs had in that game, you would have signed for that in blood going into that one.
Oh.
Jonathan Taylor, 14 carries for 45 yards. You would have signed in blood for that before the game started.
You could have doubled it, and I'd been like, sign me up.
I think there's a lot to be said about a game where we had talked a little bit too. Cam Hayward had called out their mentality after that Packers game. We had talked about that last week. There were a lot of moments in that first quarter where I thought, again, this could get late early here, type of thing. And instead, it ended up being a comfortable victory in all intents and purposes. I know a lot of people are screaming, how do you only win that game by 7 points? How do you only win that game by 7 points? They kicked a 50-some yard field goal with 9 seconds left, or else you would have won by double digits, and it would have felt much more comfortable.
And who really cares?
If Roman Wilson doesn't fumble that ball at the end, maybe you add another field goal, and you end up winning by 13, and we're singing a different story.
Yeah. I was never worried.
No. To me, the way that all played out was very encouraging.
1,000%. And I know there's been a lot of talk, and that's just how fans are. And I'm not calling out our fans, but man, you should have traded Watt. Never should have given him that kind of contract. Highsmith, trade him. Cam looks old and done. Slay doesn't want to tackle anymore. Doesn't want to get involved. Ramsey trade didn't make any sense. All these old defensive backs, retread safeties from the Patriots. You know how fans are. I mean, when things go bad, you're just going to blame everybody.
Yep.
And all those things trended the other direction. You're a lot of proud leaders, and almost all those guys I mentioned are veterans. They're not rookies. They're not young guys. But I do want to talk about some of the young guys on defense, namely Benton and Wilson and a couple of these other guys I think are trending the right way. But I thought the leaders, your big money guys, your investment dudes, were all excellent in this game. And we pre-recorded just to pull back the curtain, but there's a show on DVE tonight that Rob and Pursuta and I do every day or every Monday. And Rob opened it, and he's the point guard, and he went right to Mike, and he's like, what do you think of this game? And Mike said the same thing you did about how Cam Hayward mentioned the effort. And we all kind of thought this could be a turning point in the season.
Absolutely.
I mean, if effort's not great, and frankly, Slay seemed like the guy that was getting the most arrows in that direction, which I totally understood rewatching the game. I'm talking about last week. And Rob brought it up. He's like, how about Slay? I mean, he broke or dislocated or did something really bad to his hand, because even like when he was laying on the ground and they're coming to look at it, he's like pulling away and like he was in a lot of pain.
Yes.
Goes to the locker room like, I guess he's done. Oh, well, is this just going to be the turn of the guard for a new corner, blah, blah, blah. Comes back and plays right through it. There's a lot of leadership in that building. You know what I mean?
There absolutely is.
Yeah.
There is a lot, particularly on that defensive side of the football, too. And maybe it took a week later to surface than we expected.
Sure.
But I kept thinking of that, too, that Merrill Hodge line of never underestimate a professional that's been embarrassed.
Yep. And that defense has been embarrassed
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And they knew, too, a lot of one of the things that I always laugh at, and Moats and I would argue. I say argue in air quotes. Would joke about this all the time. Those guys love to talk about shutting out the noise, and we don't pay attention to what anybody says, and we're singularly focused and all this.
I always wonder.
They are full of it.
Okay. Moats always says that too.
No, Moats says it's a 50. He said some guys are really good at shutting it out. Other guys can't stay off their phone and can't turn it off.
Yeah. Back in the day, you just don't get a newspaper.
Back in the day, don't listen to the radio, don't read the newspaper.
Don't listen to Stan and Myron at night. Yeah.
I think I've told you this story before, but the 3 years that I worked in Philadelphia for the Eagles, I produced the afternoon show there, and one of the hosts on there was Ike Reese, who was a linebacker for the Eagles during the Donovan McNabb years, and then he played, I think, 2 years for the Falcons at the end of his career. And he used to always joke, when we would draft young players on defense, they would always send me to be like the guy that would pick them up at the airport and mentor them.
Kind of like a liaison.
The Eagles would always kind of send me to be like the welcome to the town, welcome to the franchise.
Cool.
And he's like,
which is an honor. That's not like low guy in the totem pole.
Big time honor. Yeah. This is like late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
And he's like, the first thing I would tell these guys all the time is don't read the newspapers and don't listen to WIP, which is the big sports talk station in Philly. He's like, now, it's so much. What am I going to tell them? Don't have a cell phone. Don't have social media. YouTube.
Don't leave the house.
And all this different stuff. Those guys knew how much they had been maligned, whether it's the media, whether it's the fan base, anywhere and everywhere in between over the last 2 games. Highest paid defense. This is what you're getting.
Yep.
I think
Tomlin's a defensive coach.
I think there was a clear needed response there, and those guys delivered. And like you mentioned,
and I'm so happy we got it.
So happy we got it, and most of it
didn't. It'd be like, oh no.
Most of it came from those leaders too. Cam was outstanding.
Exactly.
TJ was outstanding. Ramsey was outstanding.
I
leading
mentioned
from the front.
Slay's injury. Highsmith hurt his ankle early on and came back and played a phenomenal game. Right.
Yes, that's a great point as well too.
Yeah.
Leading from the front. Getting it from everywhere. TJ, Cam, Ramsey, Highsmith, certainly. Those guys are well compensated for what they do.
Right, because they're good at what they do.
Peyton Wilson was outstanding once again.
1,000%.
Keanu Benton played well. Derek Harmon played well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was all hands in the pile, all hands on deck.
Way fewer palms in the air communication problems, and we'll get into it later in the show, but and I'm going to watch the All-22 when I get home tonight. But definitely some defensive wrinkles that were intriguing.
Yeah,
too.
and how about Duger as well? I mean, we're 12 minutes into the show here. Maybe we buried the lead.
Yeah, step right in.
He, other than Ramsey, Queen, and Porter, he played the most snaps on that defense.
Yes.
After just getting here a few days ago, what him and Ramsey were, you talk about that communication stuff. You mentioned Alec Pierce, and
they might be set at safety now. Well, who knows?
Those wide receivers made some plays.
They're a really good group.
Yeah. But some of that, too, was kind of garbage time, empty calories.
Mm-hmm. Late drives where you're letting them, right.
Ordering McDonald's at 3 a.m. in the morning after you've been out at the bar all night, empty calories.
Early, I was worried. Pierce
did make some plays in the first. I mean, again, towards the end of the first quarter, the Colts had 10 first downs and the Steelers had none. They were clearly making plays.
They started good.
But 30,000-foot view on the whole, I think they did a really good job of staying on the same page and limiting. I mean, this was the best offense in the NFL going into yesterday's game.
1,000%. That's the thing that I couldn't get around was, okay, and we go leading up to the game. I noticed the Proud defense are showing a lot of warts right now, but maybe they do play better against the Colts. But the bar has to be even higher because this offense is phenomenal.
Yes.
And I'm sure if we were doing Colts Nation radio, it would be like, it was kind of a down day. We didn't play our best. You're 100% right. It was Jones's worst day as a Colt for sure.
And again, but that speaks to that happens to everybody in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
I don't care how good you are. You're gonna have a bad game where you're gonna have to take it on the chin like the Colts did. I don't care how bad you are. You're gonna have a good game and knock somebody out. You're gonna be the Carolina Panthers and you're gonna go into Lambeau and beat the Packers.
That's this league, right? Vikings beat the Lions with McCarthy. I mean, like that's this league. But even like the Patriot game, they had 5 takeaways. Some of them were just dumb things the Patriots did. Like in this case, other than the muffed punt situation, you earned your takeaways. You took the ball away. They weren't giveaways. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. And so, while I know on the surface, a lot of people thinking should have blown that team out, could have blown that team out.
I don't see it that way.
I don't see it that way either. After that first quarter, They were in the driver's seat the entire time.
That's a playoff team all day long, if not more.
They had the best record in the NFL.
Yeah.
Are they still now tied for the best record in the NFL,
Yes,
I think, or maybe one.
I think it's them and the Packers, the only two that have 2 losses because they both lost.
Yeah, that's right. And the Packers lost as well, too. I mean,
maybe the Eagles. No, I think about it.
Maybe the
Whatever.
Eagles.
Yeah,
I mean, I know like Buffalo's 6-2. They're like right on their tail type thing. But yeah, all in all, again, even in wins, there's some things that you would have liked to have cleaned up and see differently. But I mean,
offensively, they weren't great in this game.
And Aaron Rodgers said that after the game.
Did he? Yeah.
You know, like 21 of their 27 points came off of turnovers. They've got to be better. But Aaron Rodgers said we should have scored in the 30s this game. And I
love that he sees it that way.
And really put them away. Yeah. And I love that he sees it that way too. And Matt, we are just getting into the month of November. We are halfway through the regular season.
Pretty much at the halfway point, yeah.
Like let's not kid ourselves too. Like you want to see this by the end of this month is when you want to see this team peaking. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that yesterday was a step in the right direction.
I think a massive step, well, especially defensively. Yeah.
As you continue to clean some things up in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. No, I think so. And I mean, we'll talk way more about it tomorrow, but you got a trade deadline coming up tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Might you add a piece? I could see a defensive back, and we've talked to no end about a receiver that even makes you a little bit better football team. I think that's possible.
Oh, we'll discuss that plenty as we roll along, and certainly plenty tomorrow. A jam-packed trade deadline show tomorrow for you. But for today, we've got to continue to break down and comb through Steelers 27, Colts 20. We'll continue to do that on the other side with the voice of your Pittsburgh Steelers. Rob King joins us when we return. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson on a Victory Monday. It's The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on The Drive here on a Victory Monday as we continue to react to Steelers 27, Colts 20. Joining us now to continue the conversation, he is the voice of your Pittsburgh Steelers. You heard him on the call, of course, on the Steelers flagship with Max Starks and Missy Matthews. It is the King in the Castle, Rob King. Kinger, thank you for taking time on a busy Monday, as always. And I don't know. Did you see that? Be honest with us, Kinger, okay? Did you see that one coming yesterday? I think particularly the way it played out from a defensive perspective. Everyone's regurgitated this stat. Matt and I talked about it in the open, but the Colts are a team that had just 4 turnovers on the year.
Oh.
You force 6 in that game. Of course, 5 on defense, 1 on special teams, but Kinger, I think we could have all maybe seen a way for the Steelers to win, but I don't know if we saw it going down like that. What are kind of your, initial reactions here about 24 hours out?
Well, it's one of the reasons I love live sports because you don't know what's going to happen. If you asked me to predict, I would have said the score was going to be in the 30s, probably for both teams, because that's the way the Colts were trending offensively and the way the Steelers were trending defensively. Steelers had not had a turnover since the third quarterback in Dublin. And they completely reversed all of that and played the kind of defense we saw them play when they had the 3-game winning streak going. And so, no, I didn't see that score coming. I'm not surprised that the Steelers won the game, but they did. They won the game, and they did what they needed to do, and that's a big victory for them, a big, big victory for them.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when we previewed the game, we said things like, if the Steelers win, ... I'm sure they won the turnover battle. Boz and the special teams were super strong. But deep down, I kind of thought, if they win this game, Rodgers, Metcalf, Freiermuth, I mean, they had a lot of success through the air attacking those corners. And frankly, that's not really how the game went.
No, and I actually thought, one thing that didn't happen in the game from the Steelers' offensive perspective, and I agree with you, Matt, was I thought they'd be able to run the ball on the Colts.
Yeah, me too.
The Colts, statistically, their defense against the run, if you just look at the total yardage, was outstanding. But when you look at the yards per carry, that was not quite as flattering. And so I thought, okay, the reason for that is because they get big leads and the teams have to abandon the running game, and I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought the Steelers were going to run early, they were going to run often, and if they were going to win the game, that was going to be, one of the paths to success, and didn't turn out that way. Good to see Jaylen Warren get into the end zone for the first time running the football, and did it twice in this game. But yeah, I thought they were going to run the ball, and that surprised me that they didn't run the ball.
Absolutely, and I think a lot surprising in there in that contest, without a doubt. One thing, though, that guys we continue to see that I don't think it's surprising, but it's still nice whenever we see it transpire, is just how much better, how much tougher this offense is to match up against when Darnell Washington is on the field.
Oh yeah,
and doing the things that he was doing on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and, we talk about the running game once again, Ciamalo trying to play through the pec injury, and I'm assuming that was the issue that kept him out for a lot of the second half, which also, by the way, kept him out of the second half, except for the opening series against the Packers, which has become a factor because that has been one of their most effective offensive packages in both running and throwing the ball, was having, Spencer Anderson out there as that sixth offensive lineman and Darnell Washington as like a seventh offensive lineman. And of course, we know they're both receiving threats now, including Spencer Anderson after he had his reception against Green Bay. But no, I like that jumbo package. But, it is by and large a sort of mix and matchup kind of offense. You don't have, other than DK Metcalf, who's always going to get a share of targets. And if a defense wants to try to single him up, he's going to get more targets. Other than that, it's and then trying to run the football. It's an offense that's going to see Kenneth Gainwell maybe lead in receptions this week, and maybe Jonnu Smith next week, and then maybe the following week it's Pat Fryermuth's opportunity. I mean, I love what Darnell brings to the table, but I don't expect to see Darnell get 13 targets in a game. So there's still a little bit of a mix and match element to me with the Steelers offense, but I do like when Darnell's out there because he's shown he can catch the ball, and obviously we know he can maul people in the running game.
And I agree that there is a mix and match, and it's a week-to-week thing in a good way. You can find mismatches depending on what the opponent wants to do. But I think, at least for me, watching that game, I warmed up to adding a receiver even more. Are you on board with that or no? I think you've kind of leaned towards no over the last couple of weeks.
I had, but, again, what are you going to get? What is it going to cost you?
Sure.
Who are you going to be able to get? I do understand what you're saying, and I started to think about it more in terms of, after the offense or after the points that were scored against the Steelers defense, that notion that, look, you're hoping you don't have to do it every week, but there are going to be weeks in which you need to score a lot of points. Look, the Bears needed to score. They scored 47. They needed to score 43 to win the game, And I don't think you can, games in which you score 25 like you did against the Packers and 31 like you did against the Bengals should be enough. But you know what? It wasn't, was it? And sometimes you need to score more. And so maybe that additional weapon, if to do nothing else than at least make a team think about it. But Matt, I'm not sure because I don't think a quote unquote number 2 receiver, and seeing, maybe Calvin Austin take that downs role on yesterday, like we saw, depending upon what type of number 2 receiver it was, like, Jalen Waddle, were they going to pay Waddle whatever he's making, $28 million a year? I can't see them investing $58 million in 2 receivers. I just can't. I don't think it's going to happen. So, could you get, like, I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman, a big rangy guy like that can get you first down. Sure. But who are they, and are they available? So I thought there would be, wider spread effectiveness in the passing game. It's shown signs of doing that. I thought it would be, let me, what I thought about what it is now, let's just say that I'm more open to the idea of doing that than I had been. And I was resistant to it, as you indicated in previous weeks.
Couple more minutes here with our buddy Rob King on the drive on a Victory Monday. Kinger looking over the snap counts for the Steelers defense. 3 guys played every single snap for the defense: Ramsey, Queen, and Joey Porter Jr. And then right on their heels, right off the plane and off the practice field and fresh on the roster, was Duggar. 77 snaps, 99% of the defensive snaps, also added 4 snaps on special teams. To me, of all the encouraging things with the defense, the splash, the sacks, the limitation of Jonathan Taylor, all these different things, to me, it's almost flown under the radar in the last 24 hours how successful that safety tandem was with a guy who just got to the roster and Jalen Ramsey, who kind of had to move to a position where they don't want him to be all the time.
Yeah, and I guess the question is that where the defense is best? I mean, I think that, Ramsey is one of those guys that gives you the versatility to play probably in the slot, and free safety might be the best positions at this point of his career. I don't know. You could, that's for somebody else to argue other than I. But, this is the fact that he has that versatility to do both, and a lot of guys don't, is that where you need him most? Is that where, with all the injuries at the safety position and some ineffectiveness at some of those positions, is that where he can best serve your team? And if that's where he can best serve your team, maybe that's where you need to play him. And then, I don't know if you'd revisit it when Deshaun Elliott, comes back from his injury. But again, keep in mind that Duggar and Elliott, they're at their best playing similar positions. They're not, necessarily the same. I'm not trying to say they're the same player, but, and then that becomes a different issue. You start thinking about big nickel or other things you could potentially do. But I mean, for right now, you have to win the game in front of you. And, that's the most important thing. And people, the running game didn't get going yesterday. The offense wasn't explosive yesterday. Okay, but the offense did what it needed to do to win the game in front of you. That's what you have to do, win the game in front of you. And maybe in the short term, the best way to win the game in front of you is Jalen Ramsey at free safety.
Yeah, I thought it was a real stabilizing force, and maybe that is the tandem going forward, and you're just happy with the safety situation for the first time in a while. Now, obviously on defense, Rob, the stars, the leaders, the big money guys really showed up in a tremendous way. But I also think, and I know you're a fan of him, the first-round pick, Derek Harmon, is really coming along nicely too and is a pretty solid contributor already.
Yeah, he is, and I like that, especially that trio of guys in the front, Harmon, Benton, and Hayward. They don't play a ton of snaps together. I wouldn't mind seeing them out there more. I love that. I love what you can do with that. You can stop the run. You can push the pocket back. And I understand you can't get predictable. I was asked on an earlier show, hey, do you just simplify the defense? Well, that maybe works for a week because you have Kyle Duggar in there and you're trying to get the communication down and all that other stuff. But, you don't want to be too simple because then teams will exploit it. We've heard that be a criticism of the Steelers. Hey, we knew exactly what they were going to do, and people harp on that. Oh, they're too simple. And so you have to have the capability to move guys around and put them in the best position possible. But I really like Harmon. I think, Keanu Benton in the pass rush game has been a force in certain games. I thought certainly not only did he have a sack yesterday, but I thought, he was a big factor and Harmon was a big factor. And, it used to be when a defensive lineman, you saw somebody running and then all of a sudden you saw like a flash of speed and somebody went down. You didn't even have to look. You knew it was 97. You knew it was Cam. Cam Hayward was the only guy that big who could move that fast. Well, now we're seeing Harmon track guys down, on completions 9 yards downfield. And by the way, Cam's always been a phenomenal hustler.
Yeah.
There was a little while when it was he and Tuitt. And then it's been, Cam's been kind of, carrying the standard on his own. And of course that standard's a high standard. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer for me, but it is good to see these young guys, Benton and Harmon, who you talked about, flash and be effective. And I'm bullish on Harmon, and I was also bullish on the performance of Benton, and I think he's turned in several strong games as well.
Voice of your Pittsburgh Steelers, Rob King, kind enough to join us here on a Victory Monday. Make sure you're listening to him in the locker room every morning at 10 a.m. with Max Starks. Kinger, great stuff as always. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
There he goes. The King is exiting the castle. Rob King there with us on the drive. And Matt, remind me, and maybe not today because you know, I was gonna ask him a question or two about it too, but just so much going on and so much to get to. But Rob and I got to broadcast from the Steelers alumni dinner Saturday night.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Where they were honoring the 20th year anniversary of the Super Bowl 40 team. We had some cool guests, some fun conversations on Saturday night. So I'll have to maybe tell one or two of those stories.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about it.
Funny Jeff Reed story while we were there. Imagine that. Who would imagine Jeff Reed in the middle of a funny story? Who saw that one coming? But plenty more to get into from this Steelers victory, 27-20. We'll continue to comb over it all, break it all down as we roll along. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson, you are listening to The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on the drive here as we roll along and approach the end of the first hour of the show here on a Victory Monday. It was a crazy Sunday across the NFL. We'll get into
as usual
some of that in hour number two.
It's a very unpredictable league.
It sure is. And thanks to Rob King for joining us there in the previous segment. Matt, one of the things too, you know, like we kind of touched on it a little bit in the open, how there's still improvement for this offense. That, to me, in a performance like that, can almost be, I don't want to say encouraging because that's the wrong word, but I like how...
Is your little board doing the right thing there?
Is my little board
Usually, I'm sitting here looking.
so.
Sometimes I kind of see your screen, and it's
say,
always moving, and now it's not. The little blue house.
Oh, yeah, no, it's jumping.
Okay,
it's jumping there.
Right,
I was looking, I was like, wait a second. Matt's like looks confused. What's going on
I know.
here?
Like, usually that's like buzzing along. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'll stick to my lane.
Let me zoom in a little bit more for you there. So I'm like, what's he looking at over there?
Yeah.
What's he got going on?
I thought you forgot to hit record or something.
Oh, that would.
I will stick to my lane.
I mean, that would be pretty typical, I guess. But like in a game where Aaron Rodgers just barely threw over 200 yards, in a game where Jalen Warren 16 carries for 31 yards.
That's the one I was a little disheartened with. You know, right?
To me, as much as people are screaming, I shouldn't say. I'm probably being a little hyperbolic. But there have been a lot of people, how do you force 6 turnovers and only score 27 points? How do you, win the turnover margin like that and only win by a touchdown? It wasn't.
I don't see it that way.
I don't either because it wasn't a Mona Lisa for the Steelers offense, but they still found a way to capitalize. And they got help from the defense.
Right.
I mean, Peyton Wilson intercepts the
ball. I thought it was good complementary football like we were talking about all week.
Good complementary football. And it was nice to see that. I feel like that conversation for most of the year has swung in the offense's favor.
Oh, times 1,000.
Whereas it was good to see it swing back the other way against an opponent where you probably needed it to.
Yeah, I was quite happy, and I know the turnovers are so important in this instance. But you beat a playoff team that is one of the better teams in the league. I definitely believe that without your offense's A game. It wasn't their A game.
They've got MVP candidates, Offensive Player of the Year candidates, Coach of the Year candidates.
And it's not a bad Colt defense either.
It is not.
You're right.
No, certainly not. And you were also down a touchdown after 15 minutes of play. And then that defense just came alive when you absolutely needed it to. But for me, I still want to see more of a commitment to running the football.
Yeah, that's one of my complaints. And I know
aside from what the box score looks like and all that stuff, I want to see more. I want to see more commitment to running the football.
Yeah. Now, and this is a perfect example of how progress isn't linear. The running game is getting better. It's getting better. It's getting better. Okay, this is a step back. Let's just realize that's how this thing goes. And as you mentioned, you're not even halfway done with your games at this point. If you can continue to get better over the chunks of 3-4 games as opposed to every game getting better, that's just not how it works. fine. But this goes back to the second half of the Green Bay game. 3 carries for Jaylen Warren. I don't love that. Now, what I don't know, and hey, I think anyone that listens to us probably realizes I am an Aaron Rodgers believer. But he has a lot of freedom at the line of scrimmage. I'm sure.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I'm sure play calls come in with run or pass options, or I don't know how they specifically get things from the booth to Aaron's ears.
You got 3 different play calls that you can go with on this play.
Exactly. And he's going to audible, and he's not going to draw things up in the sand like people think. But he certainly has a reputation over his career of checking out of runs to throw. Like with the Jets, they were had the fewest carries in the league. Now they were losing all the time. And people were like, oh, he's just trying to pad his stats. I don't know why he does it, but it's pretty much worked for 18 years or since the guy was,
He's going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Right. And I don't know if it's stat padding or if he's just looking at the best option and goes there. So I guess my point is, don't just blame Arthur Smith entirely. Oh, they're not running the ball enough, because I think his track record's pretty strong that he's going to put the ball in the running back's belly. You know what I mean?
And
so I don't know why.
You are absolutely correct. And I certainly think over the last 2 games where it's felt like before that Green Bay game, it felt like the Steelers' run game was really on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
And
big picture, I still believe it is.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's pretty clear that there's some of those situations where it's an either or that Aaron Rodgers is allowed to decide,
right,
as he's earned every right to do. And
I bet he's calling plays as much as Arthur Smith.
And
yeah,
you know what? It's a
Maybe
good
more.
point. It's a good point. Or again, where it's just hey, here's 2 or 3 options when you get to the line of scrimmage.
Which one do you like best?
I understand why too, and he's earned the right to do what he wants to do and to keep the ball in his hands, and especially now that it feels like he's got the healthiest complement of weapons and pass catchers that he's had, this season. Calvin Austin fully back in the fold, and everything they've been able to do with Darnell Washington and what we've seen from Pat Freiermuth the last
capable tight ends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they once again go play action on the first play. That was another one of those bad things early on where I thought, oh man, you got a chance to hit a 20, 30-yard gain to Jonnu on the first play of the game, and it wasn't a perfect throw, but should have probably still been caught.
Yeah.
And
you knew that they were practicing. I mean, that was planned 4 days ago.
Totally. It was planned just like the Darnell Washington was a few weeks prior. I think this offensive line has shown improvement in not only pass protection but in the run game. And I think other than Aaron Rodgers, you could argue Jaylen Warren as good as anybody else on that offense.
Yeah, including Metcalf.
DK Metcalf would be in the conversation, absolutely. But that's, I think...
Warren's a heck of a football player.
He is a fantastic football player.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it is just when you can get him going early, it really opens up everything else for the rest of the offense.
1,000%. I mean, analytics folks will laugh at establishing the run and all the old school things like that.
But the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right. I mean, it's certainly a nice thing to lean back on when you are moving bodies and Warren's getting a lot of yardage and you can run the football early and it's always there in your back pocket, 1,000%. And that was missing yesterday and has been missing, I guess, for 6 quarters. Now, I don't think it's shot that they've gone back to not being a good running team. I don't believe that at all. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, and this is a huge knock-on-wood thing, and maybe it even comes up this week. Watching the Sunday Nighter last night, one of the announcers said there's only 2 or 3 teams that have started the same 5 offensive linemen for every game.
Uh-oh.
Don't go here, Williamson. Steelers are one of them, and that's in jeopardy again with Siamalu.
Yeah.
And hopefully, that's why I'm knocking on wood, left and right. You don't have change up front, because that could derail a good young group that's all progressing together. I think the tackles are playing pretty well, especially Faltanu.
You know what? I'm glad you said that too. And we're, now almost an hour into this show, and we should have referenced Troy Faltanu at some point. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Roderick Jones has been much better.
Much better.
But I think Troy Faltanu has really... Listen, Matt.
I think he's going to be a star.
You and I was thinking about this in the midst of the game as Faltanu was playing outstanding and Darnell Washington was like the focal point of the offense.
I'm like,
you and I did some predictions, and we'll revisit all this stuff at the end of the year. We don't need to go too deep into it now, but you and I we had a show or like an hour, after training camp before the season started when we've got some time to kill there, where we did predictions for this Steelers season.
Yeah.
One of our predictions was Darnell Washington 50 or more targets on the season. We're trending in the right direction in that regard.
Yesterday helped.
Yesterday certainly helped. He had 6 targets yesterday, 4 receptions. The other was by the end of the year, everyone's calling Zach Frazier and Troy Faltanu stars. Man, I think it's...
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah.
And I thought, to be fair, too, Faltanu really stood out, and it's easier to do that as a tackle. You either stand out in a good way or stand out in a bad way.
Sure.
It's almost like a defensive back, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's
It's
very
easy to see the bad
there's
thing.
very rare, like, that guy had a B game. He was fine. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. He had a B, a 3.0 GPA. At tackle and at corner, it's like you're either the valedictorian or you were a bum. There's typically not much
It's
of
the nature of the position.
And so while Faltanu stood out in that regard, I thought McCormick and Frazier played very well, too.
No, 100%.
And that is...
And Jones is getting better, and yeah.
That's encouraging, and you would hate to lose Sayamalu, I think, particularly for what it means for some of the other stuff that you can do, the corned beef package, all those things. But you also, I think, would feel pretty confident about Anderson sliding in there the way that the other 4 are currently performing.
Yeah, I think they'd be okay with Anderson for Siamalu 1-for-1. Now, the jumbo, corned beef stuff to be worked out. We touched on it a little bit last week of what some options would be. But I did just want to mention that they've been very fortunate with health, which great, because they need to be, because I'm glad they're young and they're all growing together.
They have. And, they've missed some key... Overall, I think that's been something that you can't complain too much about. They've missed some key guys. You're going to miss Deshaun Elliott. He missed some time at the beginning of the year. He's missing time now. Alex Highsmith, all those things. But you haven't had
a lot of their injuries have been defensive-oriented.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
No.
But you feel like you've got a lot of depth there, and you've got a lot of stars there, and you've got a lot of leadership there, and you've got the flexibility to overcome. What we just saw with Jalen Ramsey and Duggar and what they had to do and kind of some patchwork, throwing a safety tandem together here this week to get ready for the Colts.
And I also commended the Steelers and Omar in the front office the offseason, because I think a big priority of the offseason was building defensive depth.
Totally.
Because you're older, Like, I know they're the most expensive defense in the league, but it's not all because of the stars, too. I mean, you're paying like a Harrison. Some of your depth guys are veterans, I mean, because
Eccles and Slay.
Yeah, and that's why like the fourth quarter points allowed was so bothersome. It's like, but you built the depth, like let's use it.
And
I think we did yesterday. I mean, we saw it yesterday.
I think they did. And again, it's not going to be every single week. Here they go. But that's one of those. Those guys deserve a lot of credit. And I know I said this to you earlier in the season, but I always laugh. It's like, when the Steelers defense is performing like they did against the Bengals or the Packers, second half against the Packers, there's a lot of highest paid defense in the league.
Oh, I know.
$180 million or whatever it is.
So if they're not
but then when they go out there and get 6 turnovers, everyone's not like, that's what you get what you pay for.
I know, right. I mean, they never should have signed Watt. Cam's over the hill. Highsmith, trade him.
My goodness, Cam Hayward was a force.
He was phenomenal.
He was a force. So many deflected passes, so much chaos caused. Great in the run game. I think Quentin Nelson wants that guy to retire big time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's tired.
They might be equal players, but one wins the individual matchups every time.
And sports are weird like that.
And they are, right.
It's just sometimes certain
styles
guys,
make fights, right.
Certain guys have certain guys' numbers, and styles make fights, and maybe there's one part of your game where you don't excel, and that's a part of my game where I could take advantage. But I tell you what, if Cam Hayward played the Colts every single week,
oh man!
I mean,
he was one of the best players on the field.
He'd have
for
Aaron
sure.
Donald type numbers
Yeah.
if he was playing Indianapolis every single week, which is saying something because that's a really good Colts offensive line.
1,000%.
And that's a Quentin Nelson who is in all likelihood going to be wearing a gold jacket one day as well. I think
the bottom line is Cam is still phenomenal and showed it again.
He sure did, as did T.J. Watt, as did Alex Highsmith, as did a ton of guys on that defense that I think we did a pretty good job of giving them some flowers, giving them some roses here in the first hour. that is an hour in the books. More on this game in hour number 2. We'll also go around the league and tap into a wild Sunday across the NFL. Maybe get to some of your tweets as well before we get up out of here. Halfway home on the drive, Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It's the Steelers Audio Network. Good evening, Steeler Nation. How we doing? Well, that's good. Us too. Hour number 2 on a Victory Monday. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson here. As the calendar has switched to November, the clocks have rolled back. A bunch of nonsense, by the way, too. I mean,
we're not farmers anymore.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I've never been accused of being the smartest man in the world, okay? But Max was telling me, of course, the great Max Starks.
All his wisdom.
Fun game for him, too. I mean, gets to call a win, gets to go down on the field at halftime and get
I hadn't
honored.
thought of that. Yeah, that is pretty cool, right?
You should have seen it was funny. They had the Steelers had like a handler. I don't know who it was, if it was an intern or somebody who works for the team, whatever, who came up to the booth at like the 2-minute warning
to bring him down.
To get Max. And Max was like, wait, hold on. Give me like a couple more plays here because something's going to happen. Then they kind of rushed Max down there and rushed him back up. So he really only missed maybe 2 or I think Kinger did the last 2 or 3 plays by himself.
Really?
Of the half, and that's about it. And Max was back.
I was curious how much time that takes and all the logistics of it. Yeah.
They had it very down pat. But they were able to get Max down on the field, so he deservedly so could enjoy that moment with his teammates. And there were some great crowd pops in there. But man,
that'd be a great weekend for him too.
Dick LeBeau got the crowd going crazy. Of course, Ben and Jerome Bettis at the end there as well too
I didn't see any of it. I mean,
because that's it's being at home and everything.
Yeah, I flipped on Red Zone during halftime or whatever. Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
And they were going to cover it like that, in the stadium.
No, they were not. But it was pretty stinking cool. And really. I mean, hey, I don't think there's much of a coincidence that those guys come back into town and the defense forces 5 turnovers and the special teams gets 1. And
we mentioned even last week, I mean, that stuff matters.
It does.
If I'm Tomlin, Mr. Rooney, et cetera, I want those guys around the current players.
And to speak to that, one of the cool things, and Rob King and I talked about this on kind of the special alumni dinner broadcast that we did on Saturday night, how many iconic moments came from that Super Bowl 40 run. You start with Jerome Bettis over Urlacher in the snow, right? When the Steelers had to win 4 straight games to get into the playoffs. And then that game in Cincinnati, you have the trick play touchdown and you beat the division-winning Bengals on the road. And then you go to Indianapolis and the Jerome fumble and the Ben tackle and the Palomalu interception BS that they overturned. And then Vanderjagt misses his first field goal of the season for you to get out of there, right? And then you go to Denver, and Ben plays one of the best games of his career, and he throws that touchdown at the end to ice it, and he does the double gun shoot video that you always see. But one of those, something that is still with the Steelers organization now that got birthed in that run was, who run? The Joey Porter, and how he would use that as a rallying call for the defense. And that was in the locker room after that Colts playoff win. He's like, Bill Cowher was like, you guys backed it up. Peasy said this group was soft, and you came in here and proved that they were soft. But Peasy, can you please keep your mouth shut this week? And Peasy goes, no, coach, they shot me in Denver. Who run? They still do that now. TJ Watt really? Now, when he breaks down the linebackers, it used to be Debo for a while. And then, that's continued even after Joey Porter. That's the kind of final rallying cry for the linebackers before they take the field, as they all huddle up and they do that who ride chant. Missy was sharing this with us yesterday in the pregame. TJ Watt gathers all the linebackers to do their kind of final breakdown and who ride. And he sees Joey Porter Sr. and James Ferrier standing on the sideline. And he motions over for him and has them join so they're all doing the who ride, we ride, who ride, we ride, let's ride on 3.
That's cool, yeah.
And Peasy and Potsy are standing there in the huddle.
Doing the exact same thing. That's cool.
That stuff I think really matters.
Oh, and I do too, yeah.
You only get that type of lineage and heritage in a couple organizations in all of American sports, and the Steelers are certainly one of them. And I think some of that magic was there at Acrisure Stadium. And they needed it. They certainly absolutely needed it, Matt. Kind of ironic, too, that all happened against the Colts, and that was such a huge part of that Super Bowl 40 run, was beating that Peyton Manning Colts team. It was kind of the proverbial
big dogs in that game.
Big dogs.
Yeah,
well, they had gone to Indy like a month or two earlier and had gotten, I don't want to say boat race,
right,
but comfortably beat. It was pretty cool to see all of that come together here, certainly on a Sunday where, again, the Steelers absolutely needed it. I don't even remember where I started a couple minutes ago getting into all this and talking about Max and on the broadcast and everything. But regardless, one of the things that I wanted to make sure to talk to you about here, Matt, and we should do this now, was you referenced this a little bit in the first hour, but I wanted to dig deeper into it. A lot of the Steelers are so static. Steelers never change anything that they do, particularly on defense. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been validity to that at times in the past.
Right.
That certainly wasn't the case on Sunday afternoon. I thought schematically, particularly in the secondary, they did a lot of things. I mean, they kind of had to, because of what was going on. The safety situation.
Who knows, right, yeah.
But they, in a way, took lemons and made lemonade.
Yeah, and again, I credit the coaching staff for taking a step back and being like, what we're asking these guys to do on defense isn't working. We got to change things up. And frankly, against the Packers and especially the Bengals, a lot of the scheme stuff didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm like, you're asking this guy to cover, he's your help defender and he's so far away, or I understand big blitz, but then there's no middle of the field help and you're playing man and he's got all his grass to cover. But from what I saw, and again, I need to rewatch it. I watched the first half again, just TV copy, but I'm going to watch the all 22, of course. And some things I did see late in the game, I don't know if they were just having fun or not, but Cam Hayward came over to Watt's side a few times for late pass rush stuff. And maybe just to put it on tape, maybe just to flirt with it, see how it's going. But that stood out to me. Something that really stood out to me, though, is they played a lot of like base 4-3. Like you never see three true off-the-ball linebackers. I'm not talking about Herbig and Watt and Highsmith. I'm talking about
Queen, Wilson,
and Harrison.
Holcomb, even though he's not available for this one.
But with Harrison, they played the three of them on the field.
Yes, they did.
Quite a bit. And that's not a look that I remember seeing at all this year.
No.
And I was shocked. I don't think it's like, man, we think Harrison's so great we have to get him on the field.
He just got back into the fold.
Right.
If anything, you probably wanted him on like some type of snap
I thought
count,
he was a special teams only.
Yeah.
And from what I gathered was I think he gave them a big run presence in lighter boxes. Because the biggest thing we saw was way less single high. They call it middle of the field closed because there's a middle guy. Middle of the field open is too high, or, the middle of the field is open.
Sure.
We saw a lot more snaps of middle of the field open. Now, I don't think Duggar is a great deep player, but they played a lot of cover 4, and I don't want to explain it too much, but those guys it's not necessarily cover 2 where we're just last layers of defense. They're very active in coming forward because you kind of have a 4-man wall there. It's a big Eagles thing. It's a big Fangio thing. And frankly, just moving Ramsey to free safety, I think was a really stabilizing force. And it sounded like he took Duggar under his wing and coached him up as he went along. And
a lot of communication between those two. And I don't mean like the bad, like palms up, what are we doing?
Right,
but just
right.
before every snap, it was like hand motions and this and that and check here and almost looked like Ramsey almost looked like a first base coach.
Yeah, right.
Doing all the different touch his nose, touch his ears, swipe across his chest.
Absolutely. And in good ways.
Yes.
Right.
I mean that in a positive way. Like we are going to over communicate here and make sure we are on the same page.
Yeah, and I think their blitz percentage was lower than it's been. They definitely did some things that we haven't seen before. And this would be something I want to talk about during the week, not now, but is the safety situation solved? Is Ramsey now basically a full-time safety? I mean, it was pretty encouraging, and it's easy to say that today, but you also concede something there too. Like, well, what if you're not good enough a corner anymore?
Sure.
Well, that could happen too. I don't know.
Colts did have 200-yard receivers in that game.
They did. So there were changes. Some of them, as all inventions are, mostly because of necessity, or an accident or whatever, but they didn't plan on playing Duggar and Ramsey as full-time safeties 3 weeks ago.
Right.
I mean, this isn't like been the plan all along,
like I said, took some, not that Jalen Ramsey is a lemon, but you get what I'm saying. They took lemons and made lemonade, and that to me was very encouraging because, again, we talk about this every week, but, today and yesterday and today, it's like the highest of highs. Yeah. We're winning the division. We're going to go on a run, all that. Just a few days ago, it was this team's going to fall apart. We might not even make the playoffs. Yeah. Here come the Ravens. The answer is always somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
But to me, when you can now have the benefit of hindsight, certainly, okay, what happened in Cincinnati on a Thursday night, on a short week, older defense, on the road, against Michael Jordan and Pippen at wide receiver.
Yeah. And Flacco's been real good since then,
Flacco's
too. It wasn't a flash in the
pan.
pan.
He's been putting up numbers on everybody. Now, if their defense could just stop a nosebleed, but that's it. We'll get to that maybe in the next segment. It happens in Cincinnati. And if you're the Steelers' brain trust, if you're Tomlin, your TA, and everybody involved, you're going, okay, it's one off. On a short week, on the road, against a guy in Jamar Chase that's going into the Hall of Fame, and a guy in T. Higgins that's in the Hall of really good.
Let's keep the ship on the same course.
We
planned this out.
We're not going to mash the panic button after 1 week.
Right.
Then the second half transpires like it does against Green Bay.
And you're watching a lot of rough tape for over 2 weeks.
And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, 2 weeks now, it's not a one-off.
We got a problem.
I'm glad now is the time that you want to see them make because you also, as much as we all scream and yell, don't be static, don't stick to your guns when it's not working, you also don't want to be overreactionary. You don't want to be too knee-jerk.
Oh, right.
The second something goes wrong, we're going to blow up our game plan and try something else.
Yeah.
I feel
we've had this plan since camp and, frankly, since the draft and the
we're not going to let one game
knock
us off of that. But 2 games, it starts to become a different story.
And we know how teams are going to start attacking us. And
love how they responded. And again, not even with all of their cards in their deck, and they were still able to respond and play the right hand.
Yeah, and one thing we brought up a lot during the course of last week was, man, I bet Steichen's just twisting his mustache going, I'm going to attack their safeties
I don't care
like
who's
crazy.
There.
Right. I mean, the safety situation is so tenuous going into the game. How can I not attack them like crazy? They didn't have much success doing it.
No, they did not.
No.
And again, in the first quarter, they had more success.
Mm-hmm.
Hit a couple big plays.
It seemed like a lot of the completions were outside the numbers.
A lot of the completions were outside the numbers. And Daniel Jones did make a couple nice throws in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
He
and
absolutely
Pittman
did.
And Pierce are good players.
And Pittman and Pierce
their receivers in general are really good.
Very good players. They got a lot of guys on that offense that you would love to have. There's no doubt about that. They've got some talented eligibles. But the Steelers had a game plan. The Steelers got the better of them when it mattered most. And like I said, some of the numbers, Pierce, 6 receptions, 115 yards. Pittman, 9 receptions, 115 yards. Yeah. Doesn't look great in the box score.
No.
But a lot of that was empty calories at the end of the game, too.
Yeah, Pierce got up early. I mean, Pierce was carrying you early.
30-some yards receiving in the first quarter.
But then he kind of went dry from what I remember, and then it was garbage time until they were making some completions. Now, there was a drive late that I thought the Steelers' D was a little too generous, but.
All in all, great success.
Yeah, 100%.
Matt, let's take our first break of the second hour here. We do need to go around the league because it was a wild Sunday. A lot of teams that were kind of the proverbial favorites at this point losing yesterday. Not just the Colts.
I know.
The Chiefs take a loss, albeit on the road up in Buffalo.
Sure, there's no shame in that, but all of a sudden their record's a little rough.
The Lions take a loss. I mean, there was a lot happening.
Packers, Panthers, right.
At home to the Panthers. Wow. Plenty to get into, and we will do that as we roll along here and get into some stuff happening week 9 around the National Football League when we return. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. It's time to go around the league here on The Drive as we are now in November. The road is narrowing. The trade deadline is tomorrow. We will obviously have a jam-packed show reacting to all of that. The Eagles have made a ton of moves here.
Yeah, 3 defensive trades.
In the last.
Right, including a pretty big one today.
Acquiring a couple defensive backs and a pass rusher and a wide receiver a few days ago. Howie Roseman, I tell you what, he's riverboat gambler, baby. But we will have plenty. I mean, tomorrow, Tuesday, will be a big trade deadline reaction show.
I expect a lot of action. Steelers aside, I don't know.
Too.
You know, I think the Steelers will be. Would you bet yes or no that they make a deal?
Yes.
I would too.
I don't think it's going to be an earth-shattering, oh my goodness, they just traded a second or third round pick for a household name. But
I bet they do something.
I don't think there's any one way to go about doing this. The Eagles have been hyper-aggressive, and they've had a ton of success in the last handful of years.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have been a little more, I don't even want to say conservative, but traditional. They've had a ton of success the last hand.
Yeah.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh, 1,000%.
There's no perfect way to do it, but I always think you take every opportunity you can to improve and get better.
Yeah.
Even if it's just the 40-something guy on your roster where you think you can upgrade, every opportunity to get better, and I think so. I think they'll do something.
I think they'll do something, and I would guess it's something in the secondary or more likely a wide receiver.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think those are the two areas that you can really pinpoint as they could use some reinforcements, and there's reinforcements to be had. I think
there's options. Yeah.
It's
not like, we need a left tackle. You know?
Right, or we need a quarterback, or we need an edge rusher. Although Miami and Philly just had a deal to
that
move.
makes the Eagles noticeably better. He's a really good player.
I think. Listen, when the Eagles in that defense can rush with 4 and get home with 4, they are a tough defense to go up against. Saw that last year as they won the Super Bowl. Hasn't been quite that same. Milton Williams is off to New England, and they lost. Sweat's gone. They lost a couple pieces, but they could be getting back to that, which would be scary for everybody in the NFC. Matt, an insane game that played out yesterday in Cincinnati. They've had a lot of these as of late.
There's only one way they can play.
There's only one way they can play, and it's to score 40-some points. And
they're
a lot of times that's still not enough.
Yeah.
A combined, Matt, 31 points between these two teams in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The
Nuts.
Bengals scored twice in the final 2 minutes. The Bears score with like 17 seconds left to retake the lead. Chicago wins 47-42. And for Chicago, hey, don't look now, but they're 5-3.
Yeah, they're in pretty decent shape.
After a 2-0 start, they've won 5 of their last 6. Steelers got to go there in a couple weeks. The Bengals, after feeling like they had some life, now drop to 3-6 as they fall 47-42. Matt, nearly 90 points scored in this one.
Yeah, and again, Flacco's playing well as a Bengal, and I give him all the credit in the world. Their defense, I mean, we talked about it last week because their defensive coordinator the Steelers just faced from a year ago, and it's worse than it's ever been. I mean, I think it took a step back from last year.
Totally.
I mean, it's brutal. It's right there. We'll see Dallas tonight, but it's one of the worst 2 or 3 in the league for sure, if not last. And tough way to live. I mean, real tough way to live. Even when you're Joe Burrow, it's a tough way to live. And Flacco's good, but he's not Burrow. The Bears are interesting. They have a ton of takeaways. Their defense needs work. I'm sure that'll be the offseason. This offseason, they rebuilt an offensive line and drafted skill guys for an offensive-minded head coach and a first overall pick who looks like he's progressing well. That Bears fans should be optimistic of where the franchise is.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Another one of those, I like to use this line. Not same church, different pew. Okay, YouTube commenters. Sign for that in blood. If you would have told Chicago fans early November you're going to be 5-3, I think they would have signed.
And you look like you have a quarterback and a coach.
I think they would have signed. I know that they would have signed for that in blood. And just, man, that game, watching that game, we had it on in the booth. I mean, 89 points scored between those two teams.
And the points the Bengals have let up the last couple of weeks, too, including the Steelers game. Right.
Unbelievable. Reminded me a little bit of that famous Monday Night Football game between Goff and Mahomes and the Rams and the Chiefs years ago.
But they were two Super Bowl caliber teams.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You see games like that sometimes, but it still is just insane to see it at the NFL level.
It has to be so frustrating to lose it.
Has to be so frustrating to lose it. I think you saw some of that emotion pour. I mean, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase did not spare any punches in that postgame. Chase Brown.
I didn't even notice. I heard it was bad, but right.
Chase Brown was like, we have to get a couple 4-letter words, stop, and we have to finish these games. I mean, like, I don't want to say throwing the defense under the bus, but
it's
not
pretty obvious,
not sugarcoating it either.
I don't even know if that's being like a bad teammate. I mean, everyone on the planet sees the problem.
Exactly right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly right. And Cincinnati now at 3-6. And that defense just playing the way they are, it feels like they have to be a seller here in the next 24 hours.
I think they're crazy if they don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson is in all likelihood not going to be on your team next year anyways.
You're not waiting anything.
Get something for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Lions would take him. Niners would take him.
A lot of teams would line up. Yeah,
would happily line up for his services as the Bengals, after having some momentum not too long ago, fall to 3-6 and might be out of this thing.
I said the Ohio teams, I think, are done. It's now a 2-horse race, and the Steelers winning was big for
Much
the division.
needed.
Yeah.
Much needed. Vikings go to Detroit. J.J. McCarthy, 2 touchdown passes in his return. And maybe one of the more surprising results. There were a few surprising results this weekend.
Is high on the list, though,
Certainly what happened at Lambeau is high on the list as well, too. But the Vikings in Detroit as 9.5-point underdogs, they win 27-24.
Yeah, and Lions had a lot of penalties and turnovers, and Montgomery had a really bad fumble that was inopportune. But I think the big story is, I'm not saying the Vikes quarterback situation is set, but it was kind of a Michigan McCarthy style, where his numbers aren't great, but he made plays when he had to, especially down the stretch. They're in pretty good. I mean, I don't think Minnesota's a contender all of a sudden, but the second half of the season could go better than the first.
It could.
Yeah.
And don't look now, but the 2 teams that wear purple will meet in Minnesota this upcoming weekend.
Ah, okay.
Right, I do believe I'm correct on that. I know it's Baltimore and Minnesota. I think the game is in it is in Minnesota.
Is it? Okay.
On Sunday. Now Baltimore has a long week to prepare, but they have to go on the road.
It looks more losable now than it did a day ago.
Certainly. Let's go. Hey, Vikings, how about a little help, baby? Come on.
Yeah, do it again.
Come on, baby. As now the Vikings are back to 4-4 and have plenty to play for the rest of the way. If that wasn't the most surprising result of the weekend, this certainly was. The Packers back and we talked about this a little bit, Matt, like it was a huge spread.
Yeah.
I told you I want the points just because I think Green Bay, coming off of the huge emotional win in Pittsburgh, was going to have a little bit of a letdown. I still thought that they would win, but not by the 2 touchdowns or whatever that they were favorited. But I did not see Panthers 16, Packers 13 coming at all.
No.
I mean, at Lambeau Field as well, too.
Now, what's making things even worse is Tucker Kraft is now out for the year. They just announced that. That stinks. I mean, I know he just destroyed the Steelers, but he's really fun to root for. And I don't want to see Jaden Daniels and Tucker Kraft and these guys getting
Joe
major
Alt,
injuries.
as much as we're going to see him this weekend. Like
that works out really well for the Steelers.
Works out
but we'll
very
talk about
well
we'll
for the
talk about that
Steelers.
coming up here
Yeah.
during the week. But they are a different team with and without him. And Kraft is the straw that stirs the drink in the passing game, whether people want to realize it or not. And the Packers have had these moments. I mean,
tied the Cowboys, lost to the Browns.
Right. I mean, so there's some unevenness with them, and they couldn't stop the run at all. I mean, that was the best run defense in the league a week or so ago.
And it's not Saquon or Jonathan Taylor or Bijan Robinson that they're going up against.
And Carolina runs the ball well. I mean,
they do.
Dowdell's
It's one of the few things that they do well.
They do. They invested in guards
But
and they run the ball.
Carolina's 5-4.
What's crazy, I heard this morning. I can't verify it, but I think it's true. They've been an underdog in every game.
It would shock me if it wasn't the case.
Right, and they're 5-4.
I mean, unless they played like the Jets or the Titans, you know.
Right.
They're
I mean,
5-4.
I don't think they played the Saints yet, in the division. So they're 5-4. They've beat, this happens in the league a lot, folks.
I tell you what, there's a lot of viable Coach of the Year candidates, but if the Panthers somehow find a way to a winning record,
I mean,
that's
out kicking the coverage.
5-4 right now. They are one of the more surprise in a good way teams in the NFL this season for sure.
Their defense was so bad last year, and it's back to being pretty decent. Yeah.
You would have had them pegged
hard to run on.
If I would have told you what's more likely, they have 5 wins in November or they get a top 5 pick, you would have been like,
definitely
easy, top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Impressive what they've been doing, and an impressive win there at Lambeau. Titans in Tennessee fall to the Chargers. Funny enough, the Steelers' next opponent.
This was a weird game, too.
Wins by the same scores the Steelers did this week, 27-20.
Okay.
Steelers take down the Colts. Chargers take down the Titans by the same score. This was a weird one. Titans jumped out on them early, 14-0.
2 scores that were not from the offense.
Correct. Correct. But the Chargers able to get back in that one, move to 6-3, stay, right on the heels of the Broncos and ahead of the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they won the battle and lost the war.
Maybe.
As Rashawn Slater's out, Joe Alt is out. They had another offensive line injury in that game. I mean, you'll laugh at this. I was talking about this after the Steelers game. Max and I were in the booth, as Max always does a radio hit with Pursuta and Charlie Batch on the postgame show. So he's kind of hanging around waiting to do that, and him and I are and I'm like, you got to be liking this. We're going out to L.A. next week. It's a much shorter flight for you than usual. And we're like, how about the Chargers? Like, they won, but, man, they lost not an offensive lineman again. And Joe Alt, and Max does this from time to time. He goes, if I'm TJ, if I'm Cam, if I'm Herbig, if I'm Highsmith, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'm like licking my fingers. He goes, barbecue chicken. That Chargers offensive line is going to be barbecue chicken on Sunday night.
It really is. And so the game wasn't as close as it sounds because Tennessee got two weird scores right off the bat early on. But the takeaway for me was Tennessee was possibly the worst pass rushing team in the league going into there. I think they had 8 sacks before this game or something like that. And Herbert was under duress the entire time by a bad pass rush. And not coincidentally, you went through offensive tackles left and right. And it's pretty clear. We knew Slater was gone before the season, and that's unfortunate. He's a really, really good player, too, and they just gave him money. But the games with a healthy Alt versus not a healthy Alt have been night and day for the Chargers. And
he's one of the best tackles in the league.
Already. I mean, he just looks like a natural.
And it's especially when you combine that they lost Rashawn Slater, too, before the season even started.
Yeah, you can't overcome that stuff. And then the right tackle, Hart, I think his name is, who's been a total journeyman, also left the game.
Also got hurt.
So they could be on their 4th and 5th tackle. And
imagine if we were doing that here.
Right. I mean, Calvin Anderson's like your best guy. Right.
That's a tough way to live.
Dylan Cook, and that's what they're doing right
especially
now.
As you and I, that's one of the things.
You can't overcome it.
One of the things we talk about in the off seasons a lot is just how good defensive lines are across the NFL, particularly edge rushers in the league now. They're all apex predator, alien avatars.
Every team has somebody, yeah.
And now you're down to your 4th, 5th tackle. It's a tough situation.
Now, Omarion Hampton, I think, is capable of coming off IR this week.
Yes.
And their pass catchers are really good. I mean, but we'll talk Chargers going forward.
Oh, plenty.
And I'm a huge Herbert fan. But this was an alarming turn of events for them.
Another one of the surprising in a good way record-wise teams in the NFL this season has certainly been the Patriots. They moved to 7-2 with a 24-23 win over the Falcons. Matt, when we did our pick'em on Friday, I told you that spread it was, I think, Atlanta -4.5 or Atlanta +4.5. Patriots only 4.5 point favorites at home. I was like, this has to be rat poison. It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
And Atlanta scores 10 points in the last 5 minutes to make the score look close and respectable, but New England, once again, from start to finish, in the driver's seat, in control.
Yeah.
I still do think that they're a little ahead of schedule, and they're bound to take a step back at some point. But 7-2 is 7-2. I mean, they're right up there with the Colts and they're going to the playoffs, record in the league. They're going to the playoffs.
They're basically a lock at this point. And my big takeaways from that one are basically when Atlanta had the ball. Drake London was the best player in the field. I mean, he's
outstanding.
Force and was making great catches, routine catches. Like everyone on the planet knew. I mean, I always use this reference because part of it is like when we had Larry at Pitt, the ball's going to Larry.
Hey, Texas A&M. Here comes the Larry Fitzgerald over the top.
And once in a while you get that feeling, Jamar Chase against Steelers, London against the Patriots, and Gonzalez, their best corner, got hurt. But they stuffed the run. And the Patriot D, it's real easy to look at May and the offense, and they should. But the Patriot D is legit, and they're hard to run against. Bijan didn't do anything.
He did not. It's a good Patriots. Again, I think they're a little ahead of schedule.
Me too.
With their defense, with their quarterback. They've got a talented tandem of running backs.
They're in a good place as an organization, for sure.
They're in a very, very good place, and I don't like that one bit. The Niners, Matt, despite every reason not to, continue to win. They go to MetLife. That kind of always tricky West Coast team coming to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock kickoff. But they take care of business, 34-24 over the Giants.
Yeah, I got to do some more homework on this game. It wasn't on Red Zone much. I was busy doing a lot of other things. I basically got the impression that the Giants are pretty shot. That they're kind of at the end of their rope. They've had some injuries, and
You got some optimism rolling into next year about a couple things if you're New York.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But it's
Neighbors,
you lose neighbors, you lose Scattaboo.
Right.
And it just, you can only get so much out of Dart when he's down his top two weapons. That defensive front is talented for them, but they're on the field so much. It's
an uphill climb.
It's an uphill climb. They're going to be talking about coaching changes, and do you stick with the staff? Do you go in a different direction?
Decision. Yeah.
One thing that I really like, though, and we've continued to get some questions about this, and we will obviously do more of this on Wednesday when we go around campus, and certainly in the offseason when all of our eyes will go to the Combine and the NFL Draft. I think you can take the Giants off the list of teams that'll be taking a first-round quarterback.
Oh, for sure.
They'll be building around Jackson Dart going forward, which is good, but it's going to be a tough back half of the season for Big Blue.
The other note, though, was we know the Niners have sustained a lot of major injuries. Warner, Bosa, ones that are bad. Their first-round pick is pretty promising, Michael Williams. I think he's going to be out for a big stretch, too. They're just – eventually it's got to keep up or got to catch up. And
another one of those, if it I'm talking about Shanahan Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I was about to mention that too.
Games like they do,
but I don't think they can keep up with the Rams and Seahawks. Those two teams look so good right now.
The NFC,
just in the division.
The NFC is crazy impressive.
Yeah,
it really is.
There's a lot of good teams.
There certainly are. Matt, we said at 3-6, you can pretty much count Cincinnati out at this point.
Yeah.
At 3-5. And coughing up one at home like they did to the Broncos, can you count the Houston Texans out of this one? The Broncos, again,
I don't know.
with a massive fourth quarter to come back and win 18-15 in Houston against the Texans.
That's
Broncos
been a
moved
trend.
to 7-2 as well.
Yeah, and they don't still seem to not to really trust Knicks. Stroud left this game pretty early on with a concussion.
Big loss for Houston.
Yeah, and their O-line stuff doesn't look much better. I thought it was two really good defenses, which we knew was coming in. But to your point, is Houston in too big a hole? Probably. Like the Jags winning
won again
doesn't help them, right?
Out of Buffalo,
so
and you get 3 wild card spots,
right?
Out of Buffalo and New England, one's going to be there for sure.
At least 2 teams are coming out of the West,
and at least 2 teams, if not 3, are coming out of the West.
Right. I only think one from the North. I think it'll be the Steelers or the Ravens.
Completely agree.
Yeah, the division
completely
winner.
agree.
Yeah.
Tough sledding for Houston. The Broncos still continue to just find ways to win games.
Yeah, they weren't super impressive though.
No, they weren't, but they've won 6 in a row on the bounce, and there's
something.
I
didn't realize
something to be
something
to be from 1-2 to 7-2. If they can get moving in the right direction, Denver will be very scary.
I mentioned that Michael Williams thing with the Niners. My phone just lit up that he tore his ACL. He's out for the year.
Oh, man, the Niners just horrible luck.
2 years in a row now.
They walked under too many ladders or shattered too many mirrors or opened up their umbrella inside. Maybe all of those things. The Raiders off their bye week, Matt. We talked about this on Friday too. Could we see some life from the Raiders out of a bye week? And
we at least saw that.
We did.
Yeah.
But
Brock Bowers being healthy goes a long way too.
My goodness, was he sensational? And Geno Smith threw 4 touchdowns, looking much better himself out of the bye week. But Matt, in a typical Raiders fashion, it ends up being a missed extra point in the first quarter that cost you overtime. And then I kind of liked how they played overtime. Jacksonville got the ball first, went down the field and scored. The Raiders got the ball first. They said, screw this, we're not going for a tie. They go for 2 and they don't get it.
Yeah, they answered, though, with a touchdown.
They'll be one of those teams in the Raiders that they're clearly now, hey, at 3-5, you could have maybe fooled yourself into we've still got something to play for. At 2-6, not a chance. But I bet you they'll knock off somebody good down the stretch.
Yeah,
when
and at least show some signs of life.
They'll beat Kansas City or L.A. or Denver or somebody. They'll throw a monkey wrench into the AFC playoff picture.
I can see that.
But another gut-wrenching loss for the black and silver.
And I don't know if he'll end up here, but I don't think Jacoby Myers will be a Raider in 2 days.
He's another one. He better not be.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Probably not going to have him pass this year. Why don't you recoup something for him?
Mm-hmm.
The Rams continue to win and do so in impressive fashion.
They're pretty darn good.
They're very good.
Yeah.
6-2, and they just, thoroughly, a 34-10 commanding victory over the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints are overmatched. They're starting to have O-line problems. Shucks, not much any better.
And again, it's I don't think the Saints are as bad as their 1-8 record.
I don't either.
But they're 1-8.
But they're 1-8. Yeah.
And they're going to have to start having that conversation of they've got half a season here still to figure it out, but are we rolling with Shuck? Or are we going to be picking a quarterback in the top 5?
Yeah, it's definitely not time to think about that for them. The Rams could win the Super Bowl. Stafford should be in the MVP conversation.
Totally.
I mean, they're really good.
The Bills getting back to feeling good after a couple straight losses. They've now stacked a couple straight wins at home against their bugaboo, the Kansas City Chiefs. 28-21, Buffalo gets it done.
Yeah, they moved the ball better than I thought and played a lot better defense than I
5-4.
thought, too. Yeah, I'd say the Chiefs all
I
of a
still
sudden,
think the Chiefs are fine, but again,
I mean, 2 days ago, if you asked me, pick one team that's going to win the Super Bowl, I would pick the Chiefs. 5-4 is hard to get over. You may not even make the playoffs. I mean, it's possible.
if the playoffs started this weekend,
They're out,
the
right?
Chiefs would not be in it. They'd be the first team out.
I think the Jags are in over them.
The Jags would be in
Yeah,
over
yeah.
them because they have the head-to-head win tiebreaker. I also think the Chiefs haven't had their bye week yet, and the Jags have, so there's like the half game.
There's the half game working in their
difference
favor.
there. But
Okay.
Jacksonville also has the head-to-head tiebreaker when they had that Monday night victory over Kansas City. I still think Kansas City's crazy dangerous. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to Buffalo and losing by a touchdown.
No.
But they're 5-4.
That's exactly. I'm
They
not real worried about them.
They should
except
count
for
their
the
lucky
math of it.
stars that it looks like Houston's fallen off. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like there might be that kind
And
of
I don't know if Jacksonville will maintain what
there
they're
might
doing,
be
too.
that kind of the Chiefs get the last chair on the Titanic. You know,
Yeah.
as some of these other teams
That's
fall
very
off.
possible. And I can see them being aggressive in the next 24 hours, too.
I think so. And finally, the team that might have turned in the most impressive performance of the weekend. Matt, if I were the Seattle Seahawks, I'd just want to play every game on the road, particularly
It's
on the
ridiculous.
particularly on the East
Yeah.
Coast. Let me sign up if I'm a Seattle fan. I want to play every game on the East Coast on the road. 38-14 over the Commanders. At one point, Matt, last night, Sunday nights, we kind of record our WVU reaction show, the WVU show that I do, talking about, hey, how about a ranked road win for the Mountaineers? Needed that one on Saturday. We're recording that show Sunday night, our kind of reaction show, and I've got that game on my TV while I'm in my little basement
just
setup.
muted on the side.
I'm like, man, Seattle's rolling. Man, Seattle's rolling. Man, Seattle's rolling.
Ball never hits the ground.
I look up at one point, and Sam Darnold was like 13 of 13
Yeah.
for 200 yards and 3 or 4 touchdown passes.
I think he ended up being like 18 straight or something crazy.
Unbelievable performance from him, from that Seattle offense, from them as a whole.
The defense was every bit as good.
As they continue to look like one of the best teams in the league, legit
Yeah.
Super Bowl contender. Matt, they're 2-2 at home. They're 4-0 on the road, the Seattle Seahawks.
Which is like 2 years in a row. I think they've lost one game on the road over 2 years.
But maybe the bigger story of that, other than, of course, Seattle looking like a bona fide Super Bowl contender, is the Commanders not only fall to 3-6, they're probably out of it.
They're in trouble.
But a nasty injury to Jaden Daniels that might have him out, probably will have him out for the rest of the year.
I would assume, an ugly one, obviously. They've had a couple injuries. They're not going anywhere. I mean, McLaurin can't get on the field, and then Daniels, I think it's his 3rd injury of the season. He had hurt a lot at LSU, too. I mean, it was one of my worries coming out, but this was just a terrible. It probably could happen anyway. The way he landed and his arms were wrong. Yeah.
The one silver lining of it is it's his non-throwing arm, at least.
Right.
I mean, if that happens to his right arm,
Who knows what kind of
it could be a
ramifications.
career-ending type thing, or
yeah.
at least a career-altering, never the same type injury.
But they're in a bad spot overall because
They
they're
are.
so old, and they've sent a lot of future picks for guys thinking they were closer than they were, which
This is
I saw coming from a mile away. Like, you're not a Final Four team last year. You just happened to make the Final Four. You know, you're not. Yeah.
You're not Duke or Kentucky. You were just
No.
one of these, 12 seeds that got hot at the right time
Right.
and
The
made
year
it to the
before,
Final
you
Four.
earned the 2nd overall pick. You know,
Yes.
you're not Debo Samuel away from beating the Chiefs and Bills. You know,
Yes. And I know that I've told you this before. I never wanted to see a Steelers team in the position of like, all right, we're punting on the back half of this season. It's over. We're focusing on next year. Because then all of a sudden our job gets much more difficult.
Well, it does, yeah.
But if I'm the Commanders, it might be time to start thinking about 2026.
Especially after this injury happens.
After this injury happens, you are so old on defense. You're going to have a top 12 draft pick, top 10 draft pick.
You can't be counting on the Ertzes and Bobby Wagners
You can't.
and those guys anymore.
You can't.
Right.
And you still have to have faith in your young quarterback that this year will just be an unlucky, injury-filled one-off.
Right.
Let's start looking towards 2026, which is a tough place for them to be in after they really felt like they took a step forward last year.
Yep.
Matt, Monday Night Football tonight. Cardinals, Cowboys, not the sexiest matchup.
No, it's not, but it could be a lot of offense.
Dallas minus 3.5. Highest over-under of the week.
Is it in Dallas?
It is in Dallas, yep.
I'd probably take the Cowboys. We're getting Jacoby Brissett again, which actually might make them better than Murray, but I just think Dallas scores on everybody.
I think Dak's probably the best player on the field in that game. And
Pickens, Lamb, right.
That'll go a long way for Dallas. I think they win a high-scoring one. I'm with you. I'd like that number a lot more if it was 2.5, but I'd still lay the 3.5.
Me too.
With Dallas. When we return on the other side, we don't have much time here. That was a beefy
I'd say that
segment.
had to be eating up some time.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna save. I do have a lot of tweets bookmarked and saved. We will get to those tomorrow.
Okay.
I got a good Steelers alumni dinner story for you.
I want to hear.
Saturday
Yeah.
night. A good Jeff Reed story that I have that I have to share with you in our final minutes before we get out of here. We'll do all of that to wrap this thing up on the other side. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It's the Drive. The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Final segment of The Drive here on a Victory Monday as we've put a bow on a busy Week 9 across the National Football League. And, of course, a much-needed victory for your Steelers Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. It was, of course, Matt, a big weekend, not just because Steelers needed a win. Colts came into it with the best record in the NFL. But, of course, as we've alluded to a couple times, it was the 20-year reunion. Lord, that makes me feel old.
I bet.
Or maybe not old, but just not young. I'm 34. I'm going to be 35 here in a couple months.
You're not old, but you're not young.
I'm not old, but I'm not young. But I was 15 years old when that team won the Super Bowl. They were the first team in my life that I was old enough to really be all in, emotionally invested.
These dudes are awesome, yeah.
Understand what's going on. The backdrop of going 15-1 the year before and losing the AFC Championship game at home. Normally when I do those alumni dinner shows, I did a couple in the past with Dale and Wolf. This one was with Rob King.
Mm-hmm.
It's nerve-wracking for me because it's a lot of the 70s Steelers.
Oh, sure.
And I just I didn't watch those guys play.
No, it's like kind of ancient history to you,
I don't
right?
That even though it was 20 years ago, I can tell you every little detail about that 2005 team.
Mm-hmm.
They lose to Cincinnati. TJ Houshmandzadeh does the terrible towel on his cleats. I'm putting my foot in the air here if you're watching on YouTube. The Steelers fall to 7-5 after they were just 15-1 in the AFC Championship game before and had all these high expectations. They go from 7-5. They win 4 straight to get into the playoffs. They go on that gauntlet run, the crazy game in Indianapolis, the AFC Championship game in December, all that stuff. They win 8 straight games between the 4 regular season and the 4 playoffs. They become the first 6 seed in league history to win the Super Bowl. Like, I remember all those details like it was yesterday.
And as you can attest to this weekend, there's a lot of big personalities.
So many big personalities.
Really good football players.
And so I was very excited for this one to talk to these guys because that's right in my wheelhouse.
Oh, that's awesome, yeah.
And I was watching the Super Bowl 40 broadcast, and this is something I brought up to all these guys. I brought this up to Jeff Hardings. I brought this up to Brett Kiesel. I brought this up to Kimo von Oelhoffen. I went back and watched the most of the broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just found it on YouTube, Super Bowl 40. In the intro, of course, everyone remembers how Joey Porter told everybody, hold back, let Jerome Bettis run out there by himself, which is really cool. And all those guys will tell you, best. You ask those guys, who's the best, you played football your whole life, high school, college, pros, best teammates you ever had, and almost to a man, they'll all say Joey Porter. Like, just the way that he looked out for his guys and always thought about stuff like that. That there was nobody on that Al Michaels said this on the broadcast at the beginning of the game. And I was like, wait a second. Had to go back and rewind. None of the Steelers on that roster had ever played in a Super Bowl before. Not a single Steeler on that Super Bowl 40 team had won or played in a Super Bowl before. we never thought about that or questioned that or talked about that because they had so much leadership on the roster.
Yeah, they
you
had
know
a lot
what I
of
mean? Like
serious dudes.
a lot of
yeah.
you know, from obviously Joey Porter and Jerome Bettis, but on down the list of the Farriers and the Palomalus and the Wards and the Roethlisbergers and the Fanekas and the Kimo von Olhoffens and you know guys that had experience and
Everyone talk about
success.
Farrier being a great leader.
Oh my goodness, unbelievable. So that was one of the things that I brought up to those guys, and they were all like, "We didn't know that. We didn't know that. Oh yeah, nobody on the roster had ever been to a Super Bowl before." Like, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So it was a ton of fun to talk to those guys about that, just to get them reliving those memories and all those different things. You know, Teresa Varley from the Steelers and Steelers.com. She did a great job. I mean, it was like every 10 minutes she was bringing us new guests and new guests. We did, Matt, a 90-minute show, Kinger and I. We were on from 5:30 to 7. I think we took two breaks the whole time.
Really?
Because it was just
story after story.
It was just story after story. And our guy Tom was producing for us back here, and he was like, just keep going. Screw
awesome, yeah.
I'll make it work in the log and everything later. This is too good. Just keep going. So, you know, again, I mentioned a lot of the names that we got to talk to. Even more, it was a ton of fun catching up with those guys. But one of the guys we got to talk to that's always a hoot is Jeff Reed. And this was the story I had to tell you before we got out of here. So Jeff comes to sit down, and that was one of the breaks that we took was right before he came on. And so he's sitting there with us, and we're like, thanks for doing this. We're back in 60 seconds here. And Jeff is like, all right, this is live. Like, this isn't a podcast or anything. Like, this is live radio. And we're like, yep. And he was like, all right, cool. I got to make sure I wash my mouth. 3 minutes later, he dropped a 4-letter word on the broadcast.
Ah, nice. Didn't do a great job with that.
I wouldn't have expected anything less of Jeff Reed. It wasn't the one word you can't say.
Yeah,
so
okay.
it was a little less, not the end of the world, but it was like that was one of my favorite.
And he just asked about it 3 minutes ago.
That was one of my favorite moments of the night was Jeff Reed being like, "This is live radio. All right, I got to watch my mouth." And
got it. Yeah.
3 minutes later, 3 minutes later, he drops a 4-letter word on the broadcast. But it was just awesome seeing all the. I mean, you know, Bill Cowher was back there.
Yeah.
Like a couple of the guys weren't able to make it. Hines and Randall L. both weren't there.
Cowher just came in for the night because he was on the broadcast.
Came in for the night and then flew back.
Yeah.
Like Hines wasn't there because he's the wide receiver coach at Arizona State, and they had a game. Randall L. wasn't there because he now is coach with the Bears, I believe. He was with the Lions for the last few years.
I think he went with the coordinator change and got a bump.
Exactly right, and got a little bit of a bump. So he was not there. But just so many of those guys, so many of those personalities, amazing to see them. And like, I mean, 20 years later, man, like that's just nuts.
Pretty cool.
And like I said, it was especially cool for me because I remember every detail of that. I also told those guys the story. I know I've told you this before. My mom pulled me out of school that day for the Steelers parade. So Steelers win the Super Bowl. Steelers win the Super Bowl on Sunday. Parade was in Tuesday.
School day, yeah.
My mom was like, I told this story to Jeff Hardings and Kimo von Olhoffen, and they were cracking up. They were like, you got to give your mom props for that one. It was a school day. My mom was like, you have to go to this parade. They haven't won a Super Bowl in 25 years. Like, who knows how long it's going to be? You know, like, we have to go to the parade. We have to go to the parade. God bless my mom. Coolest lady in the world. So she's like, but you're not going to miss math class or whatever I had early in the morning. She's like, I'll come pick you up in third period. I'll take you out for the rest of the day, and we'll go to the parade. So she does that. They call me down to the office. We're getting ready to leave, and the secretary in the office goes, hey, so, hey, before Wesley goes, what's his excuse for the absence here? Why are you taking him out? And my mom froze and panicked, and she goes, he's got a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she's decked in Steelers gear.
Yeah.
I'm decked in. We got like our terrible towels hanging out of our pocket.
Everyone on the planet knows it's parade day. Yeah.
And they go, okay, just make sure he brings in a doctor's excuse tomorrow when he comes back.
Sure, right on.
So we get in the car, and my mom is like good Christian lady, hardly ever told a lie in her life. She's like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I lied. Felt so guilty. We're driving downtown. She gets on her cell phone and calls the school office and is like, I'm so sorry, I lied. I'm taking Wesley to the Steelers parade. And they were like, the secretary at Mars High School at the time was like, oh, no problem. We knew that you guys were going to the parade. We're jealous. Have a good time. Enjoy it. So I told those guys
you're not getting a doctor's excuse the next day.
They were cracking up. But no, it was a lot of fun. And one of those groups that just, that one I know you'll remember this, that one for the thumb for 25 years. Joe Green talked about one for the thumb in 1981.
I was going to say, when I was old enough to at that stage, I was like 8.
And for
I've heard it for my whole life.
25 years, they got close a couple times in the 90s. They got close a couple times with Cordell Stewart and the year before Ben's rookie
they had
year.
a lot of good teams, obviously.
It went to a handful of AFC championship games and a Super Bowl in that stretch. For them to finally get over the hump, what it meant to the city at that time, if you weren't around for it, you can't possibly quantify it now. Everywhere you went, it was one for the thumb. The Strip District T-shirts, the everything. And so it was a lot of fun to see those guys get the acknowledgement that they deserve.
That's cool.
That'll do it for our show today. Thanks to everybody for rocking and rolling with us. Thanks to Rob King for joining us. Big shout out, as always, to our video producer, Tyler V, Mr. TV, for making us look handsome on the YouTube. Tomorrow, Matt, big trade deadline show. We'll talk to Chris Adamski as well, too. Who knows? Maybe we'll be reacting to a Steelers move. Maybe we'll be reacting to something big across the league, like a Trey Hendrickson type name getting moved, something like that.
Stuff's going to happen.
But stuff is going to happen, and we will be here tomorrow to react to it all. But that'll do it for us today. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow. As always, you know where to find us. It's on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. It's Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network.